All right, everyone, welcome. I'm really glad you're all here for today's session. We're going to be doing a focused review on what I believe is the absolute key to unlocking spoken Mandarin, pinyin. You know, getting this system down isn't just about sounding good. It's about building the real confidence you need to speak clearly and know you'll be understood. This is the bedrock that everything else stands on. So, let's get started.
So, to get us thinking in the right direction, I want to pose a question. If you had to pick just one thing, the single most important key to unlocking spoken Mandarin, what would it be? Well, the answer, as we're going to prove today, is a rock-solid mastery of pinyin. Think about it for a second. We have all these thousands of complex characters. How on earth are we supposed to know how to say them? Pinyin is that bridge. It's the phonetic map that connects the written symbol to the spoken sound. Learning to read this map isn't just helpful. It is absolutely essential.
So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to approach this systematically, almost like a biologist dissecting a specimen. First, we'll look at the basic formula for any Mandarin syllable. Then we'll zoom in on its two core parts, the initials and the finals. After that, we'll see how they snap together. We'll add that crucial musical layer of tones, and then finally, we'll put it all into practice. This step-by-step method is designed to make sure we build an understanding that really sticks.
Okay, let's dive right into our first section, the foundation of pronunciation. The main goal here is pretty simple. I want to change how you see Mandarin sounds. I want you to stop thinking of them as these big, scary, monolithic things. Instead, we're going to see how every single sound can be broken down into simple, logical, and totally manageable parts.
And this is the core concept, the simple formula that governs every single syllable in the Mandarin language. Initial plus final equals syllable. I want you to burn this into your memory. It's like a fundamental law of physics for pronunciation. You take a starting consonant sound, you add a core vowel sound, and boom, you've just built a Chinese syllable. We're going to come back to this simple, powerful idea again and again.
So, now that we have our formula, let's take a closer look at that first variable. This brings us to section 2, where we'll focus on component 1, the initials. This is the first half of our equation. It's the consonant sound that really kicks off the vast majority of syllables you'll ever say.
Let's get a really clear definition down. An initial is simply the consonant sound that begins a Chinese syllable. And as it notes here, most syllables have one. Now, it's true there are a few syllables that can start directly with a vowel sound. Think of words like I for love or on for peace. But for our purposes and for the 99% of cases you'll encounter, you should think of the initial as the standard starting point for everything.
Okay, time for some hands-on practice. I'm going to pronounce each of these common initials. I want you to listen very carefully and then repeat right after me. Really pay attention to what your mouth is doing. Ready? B, B. Now, P, P. Good. Notice for those first three, your lips press together. Okay, next, F, F. Feel how your top teeth touch your bottom lip. Now, D, D, T, T. And finally, L, L. Fantastic. The good news is these are pretty straightforward. They have very close equivalents in English. But this is where things start to get a little tricky.
And here we are. We've reached what's probably the first major hurdle for English speakers. We need to talk about aspiration. And all that means is, do you release a little puff of air when you make a sound? In English, we do this all the time, but it doesn't really change a word's meaning. In Mandarin, it's everything. It's the difference between saying tang for soup and dang for sugar. You can see how that might lead to some very confusing meals.
So, the key is to understand these pairs. The sounds on the left, unaspirated, no strong puff of air. The sounds on the right, they're aspirated partners. Let's really feel the difference. I want you to hold your hand or even a piece of paper right in front of your mouth. Now, for the letter ba, say ba. You should feel almost nothing. Ba. Now for P, really push the air out. Pa, pa. Feel that explosion of air? That is aspiration. Let's try the next pair. The unaspirated da versus the aspirated ta. The unaspirated ga versus the aspirated ka. And it's the same for the more complex ones. Za versus ka and ja versus cha. Getting this difference right is absolutely non-negotiable.
Now let's tackle another one of these notorious trouble spots, the J, Q, and X sounds. The mistake nearly everyone makes at first is trying to pronounce them like the English ja or qua. That's not it at all. The absolute key, and I can't stress this enough, is your tongue position.
For all three of these sounds, the very tip of your tongue needs to be pressed down firmly against the back of your bottom teeth. Let's all do it. Tongue tip down. Now for J, push the middle of your tongue up and say G. It's unaspirated. G. For Q, it's the exact same mouth position, but you add that puff of air. It's the aspirated twin. Ki. And finally, for X, keep your tongue tip down and just let the air hiss out slowly. She. It's kind of like the English she, but with that tongue tip anchored down. This one takes practice, but mastering that tongue placement will unlock these sounds for you.
All right, we have our starting sounds down. So let's move on to section 3 and talk about the other half of the equation. Component 2, the finals. If the initial is kind of the attack of the sound, the final is the heart of it all. It's the main vowel sound that gives the syllable its body and its character.
So what exactly is a final? It's pretty simple, really. It's just the part of the syllable that comes right after the initial. It almost always has the main vowel sound. So if that initial is the sharp start of the sound, the final is its core resonance. It can be a simple, pure vowel like ah, or it can be a more complex, gliding sound made by combining vowels. We call those compound finals.
Okay, let's practice these together. First up, the simple finals. I'll say each one twice, and you repeat. Ready? Ah, ah. Good. O, o. E, e. U, u. And finally, u, u. We'll come back to that last one in a second. Now listen to how these can combine to create compound finals. The trick is to just glide smoothly from one vowel to the next. Don't stop in the middle. Listen. I. A. I'll. And O. Okay, let's zoom in on this one sound that often gives learners a real challenge, the final U. This sound just doesn't exist in English, but there's a trick to it. You have to shape your mouth in two ways at the same time. First, get your mouth ready to say the sound E, like in the word see. Pay attention to where your tongue is. Now freeze that tongue position, but round your lips like you're about to whistle or say ooh. When you combine those two things, you get the sound U. Let's try it with the word for green, lu. One more time, lu. Or the word for female, nu.
Excellent work. So now we have both of our building blocks. We have the initials and the finals. So let's move on to section 4 and actually start putting them together. This is where that simple formula we talked about at the beginning really comes to life.
Look at how straightforward this is. It's really just simple addition. We take the initial how, we add the final ow, and we get the syllable how. We take the initial ne, we add the final e, and we get ni. And one more. We take the initial ba, add the final a, and we get ba. See? It's just a matter of combining two sounds that you now know how to make on their own. You're not memorizing whole sounds anymore. You're building them from scratch.
Okay, so we've successfully built our syllables, but we are missing a crucial layer. We're missing the most important, the most uniquely Chinese element of pronunciation. So welcome to Section 5, the music of Mandarin. We're talking about tones, that layer of pitch that rides on top of every single syllable and fundamentally changes what it means.
I want this concept to really, truly sink in because it's probably the most critical thing we'll cover. In English, we use pitch to show emotion, right? Surprise, anger, a question. But the basic meaning of a word never changes. In Mandarin, the tone is as much a part of the word as its vowels and consonants. Getting the tone wrong doesn't just mean you sound a little off. It means you are literally saying a completely different word. As it says here, this is not optional.
This is the classic example, and for good reason. Using the syllable ma, we can see the incredible power of tones. Listen very closely as I go through the four main tones. First tone is high and flat, like you're holding a note. Ma, ma, that means mother. The second tone starts in the middle and goes up, like you're asking a question. Ma, ma, that means hemp. The third tone is the trickiest. It dips down and then comes back up. Ma, ma, that's horse. And the fourth tone is a sharp, quick drop, like a command. Ma, ma, that means to scold. Mother, hemp, horse, scold. Same exact syllable, four totally different worlds of meaning, and it's all decided by pitch.
Fantastic. We have now covered every single piece of opinion syllable. But, theory is one thing. Now we get to the most important part of any language class, reinforcement and active practice. It's time to put what you've learned to the test.
Okay, let's look at our first practice syllable. You can see the initial H, the final ow, and that little V-shaped mark for the third tone. Take a second and try to say it out loud. Remember that dipping and then rising pitch. Ready? The correct pronunciation is hao. Listen again. Hao. You have to feel your voice drop before it comes back up. And this, of course, is one of the very first words you'll learn. It means good.
All right, here's our second one. What's the first thing you notice? That initial Q. That should be a red flag. This is a check on your aspiration. Remember to get that puff of air. The final is U, and it has the fourth falling tone. Give it a shot. The correct way to say it is gu. It's that sharp, falling sound combined with that burst of air from the ku. Gu. This word means to go.
And for our last practice syllable, we're putting two of the trickiest pieces together. We have the initial X, remember to anchor your tongue down, and we have that special final xue. Now, quick rule. When xue comes after J, Q, or X, the two little dots are left out. So even though it's written as a U, you have to pronounce it xue. The tone is the second, rising tone. Take your time with this one. The correct pronunciation is xue. Hear that rising pitch, like a question? Xue. This word, appropriately enough, means to study.
So, to wrap everything up today, I'm going to leave you with this little challenge. This combines the last two sounds we just practiced into one very common, very important word. We have xue, that second tone we just mastered, followed by si. Now, you might notice there's no tone mark on that second syllable. That's called the neutral tone. It's just short, light, and it gets its pitch from the syllable before it. So the word is xue xi. Do you see? Now that you can deconstruct pinyin into its building blocks, you can see how even a longer word is just a simple combination of these rules. Keep practicing this method. Break every new word down into its initial, its final, and its tone. If you do that, you will build an unshakable foundation for spoken Mandarin. Excellent work today, everyone.